Hey everyone, it's Right1940 here. Today we're taking a look at Enigma's Cold War server, and this was a sortie I did before the server had reset, and the next sortie was the Hipset C video that you all saw. Now, this one I really wish the track was working because there were a lot of hot drops and hot pickups, and I know I tell people not to do them if you don't need to, but this certainly was the case where we needed to, because in close proximity there was a blue airbase right across the border. And so I wanted to do my best to try and destroy all the air defenses that were around the airfield so that the red air could help support Cap on the front line. As we approached the airfield, I could see like jets being shot down, and it prompts me to have to stay at treetop height as we come in for a hot landing, our first one. Now we've got a good lane once we hop over this tree line here, and that's perfect for these fast landings because you can really take your time to bleed off the speed and still stay under the treetop height, and so it'll mask you somewhat to enemy aircraft and also to the air defenses that are nearby. Once I land and I drop them off, I have a quick debate in my head if I should stay there or not. Usually if I'm around enemy air defenses, I'll try to stay put, but because we're on the front line and I've noticed a lot of enemy aircraft flying around, it is kind of a death sentence to stay in that same spot because they'll see all the dust and the snow that you're kicking up, and they'll be able to come down on you and destroy you. So after we drop the troops off, we drop some recon as well at the same time, and then we jet along the tree line once again, and once that opens up pointing towards the red side, then we cut in that way as hard as we can, stay really low, and cross into the red side of the border. So as we accelerate away here, one of the things I really enjoy in the HIP and that I try to teach new people if I'm multi-crewing with them is you can get pretty aggressive with the cyclic. You can go to large degrees of bank. You just got to be careful about the rotor diameter. It's about 21 meters, so give yourself, I don't know, 15, 20 meter buffer when you're doing a hard aggressive banking turn. But the HIP can take it, so it's really helpful if you want to stay low to the ground, but you really need to change your course. It's an easy way to do it. So we pick this back up as I'm making my turn back into the target area. Normally when I'm doing standard troop drops, because they take 3 minutes, I'll fly outbound for 1.5 minutes, and then I'll fly back inbound for 1.5 minutes. Now they're not perfect timings, and that's okay. Basically I want to approach the pickup area right as the troops are finishing their mission, so I could see for sure that the area was destroyed. And I can also see where the flares are, because generally I kind of remember where I put the troops. Especially in this case, I remember there's a nice lane. Now I tell you, I don't know if it is the same way for all of the other guys that fly the helicopters, but there's no greater feeling where you time it just right and you're coming in and you see the targets explode in the distance, and you see the kill feed fill up with yellow as you destroy a bunch of troops, and then you can see your troops waiting with their flares. When you get the timing right, it just feels great. So there we go, we're approaching the target area really quickly, and we see the targets in front explode. We still have to be careful because there are a lot of other units in close proximity, so we just can't fly too high. But because I've already made this initial drop in the same area, I kind of have an understanding of how much speed I can bleed off in the turn as I pop over that tree line and as I come down into that lane for a nice pickup. So I thought with the amount of troops I had put out that I was going to destroy the two closest groups to where I landed, and I appear to have only destroyed one that was uncovered by recon, so I'm not sure if another group was just not recon that was really close by us. But because of that, I'm checking the map one more time before we take off to figure out that I need to put down another set of standard troops. And then we jet out of there. We do the same sort of egress path along the tree line and then cut over to the red side once more. And also still out are my recon. I've got to wait for them to expire. So like I said before, if you need to stay low, you can be really aggressive on your cyclic banking inputs. You'll know when you're doing it too much. You'll feel the helicopter start to kind of fall into the turn. And you can counter that by just lowering the collective, because then you'll reduce the angle of attack, because the blades are starting to stall at that point because you're just banking too much. Lower the collective when you feel it happening, and then you can start to put back the cyclic to where it was before, and then you'll find that edge. And as you do it more and more and more, you'll be able to figure out where that edge is, and you won't have to worry about correcting it. Basically, you can max perform it. Usually when I'm running outbound for a minute and a half and I'm doing it on the friendly side, I'm just looking for tree lines or something to mask my aircraft, but kind of in a straight line so I can run parallel to them and go as fast as possible. It's important to note that when you go outbound a certain speed and you kind of think your average maybe is 250 or 270 kilometers per hour in the hip, you want to kind of go the same route coming back in if you're really into timing the drops to explode right as you're approaching, because if you take a more circular route to get back to the target area, you could be slower and you could miss the timing. So try to keep up with the landmarks as you're heading outbound, and so you can take them as you come back inbound. This is a good example of coming in too early. So we were getting shot at as we approached the lane that I've been using to do these drop-offs and pickups, and the troop timer wasn't done yet, and so as we get really close, the mission elapses, and then the soldiers, they had already run off, I guess, to a different location, so we've got to go and find them for pickup. Now they end up popping up on top of, or some of them were popped up on top of a tank farm, and so I just use that as a good opportunity to practice the hover pickup. You can tell from my jittering around a little bit that I absolutely needed it, so that was all right. And I've already got an idea of where I want to drop the troops again, so it's going to be further into town on along the airfield as well, so we'll make our way over there as fast as possible. You might see me checking the map a lot as I fly around, and I wanted to leave that in to kind of show you guys what I'm doing. A lot of times I'm looking for, if I see forested areas ahead of me, I want to see how deep it is, because I don't want to stay stuck over the forest area for a long time. So I'll try to find little bands of it where it thins out, and then I would use that as a way to hop over a portion of the forest or go around it. Because when you're stuck over the forest, like you're in the hip, you're a massive dot that people can see. So I want to minimize my time flying around like that, so I'll find little bands of trees to be able to hop over. Now, if this is a great case for a multi-crew run, it's really intense because there's so many jets flying around. We're really close to the enemy airfield, and it's hard for me to look at the map flying so low, because a lot of times we're about 10 meters off the ground. We're going 250 to 270 kilometers per hour. Looking at the map for even 1 second can be fatal if the aircraft's not trimmed right, or if I'm not holding the cyclic correctly or something. So if you had somebody flying multi-crew with you, and if you were a co-pilot, one of the things you could be doing is you could be looking at the map. You can be adjusting the pilot's compass to kind of point them in the direction that they need to go for the place that you guys decided where you wanted to land the troops at. You can be checking the map to pull out 4 kilometers from the next group of targets to kind of figure out what area can you put the helicopter down in. You can tell the pilot, hey, we're within 4 kilometers, you can touch down anywhere, so he doesn't have to worry about that, and then he can just keep looking outside the cockpit. Like the other runs that I've been doing for landings, when they're pretty hot, I like to find a lane that I can run parallel to, so this tree line worked out really well. I knew that I didn't want to go into the city just yet because the proximity of all the buildings could make it difficult to try and find one spot to come to a quick stopover. Tree lines like this going into a field or along a field are really nice, because then you can kind of take your time if you need to, or it's hard to kind of mess it up. So before I take off, I always look to the left, and sometimes often as I am taking off, I continue to watch out the left window, because I don't want to hit the troops down there, and the hip has this tendency obviously to slide to the left, and we counter that with right cyclic. It's not a big deal, it's not a hard problem to overcome, but it's something you just, at least for me, I have to keep watching, because if you're not paying attention to it, you can kind of drift off to the side there, and if you're a few meters up, you'll be neck high or head height for those soldiers, and you'll kill them. So something that I always watch for. Now the next thing we got to do is go pick up the recon. We're not going to be able to time this current standard troop drop. I just know by the time I get the recon folks and I head back, sometime on the way back that this drop will pop. So the recon guys are actually outside the normal lane that we were using beforehand. They're to the right of that now, out in the field, but they're still along that tree line, so just on the opposite side. So we're using that as a way to slow down, and this is one of my favorite ways of decelerating in the hip. It's just this, you're pulling aft on the cyclic, and you find that sweet spot where you're not going to climb anymore, and at that point, that's what's limiting you. You can lower the collective initially to lose that speed, but as the speed starts to drop off slowly, you got to put the cyclic forward some more, and then you got to add more collective in, and you're kind of modulating that as you look at the guys. You can also throw in some pedals so you can see better and kind of try to put more drag on the aircraft to slow down. The other way is like a dynamic, more dynamic, where you fly over and you do a big hooking turn back to them. Right now I don't feel the need for that. It's just excessively dangerous because the way the trees are and stuff and the icing conditions, I think that there's a high potential for me to foul that up, so I don't want to do that. Yeah, still both ways are enjoyable. It worked out pretty well. As we're approaching our guys, we get the message that their mission is complete, and it's not long before we come down to go get them, so I use the few seconds we have to figure out where I want to do my next drop, because a lot of times you don't want to figure that out on the ground because you're not sure how dynamic the situation is going to be. I'll just say that. So I pull out 4 kilometers from the camp. It looks like they're in a big field or something, so I want to pull that out into the city, because at least with the city I know I'll have buildings to hide behind and more cover. Basically I'll have to go slower for the landings and pickups, but it's kind of a trade-off that you need to have. You don't want to land out in the field. Even within 4 kilometers, you're kind of at risk that if the camp has like an M60 tank or something, that they're going to start shooting at you and blow you up if you're on flat land. So we opt to pull out 4 kilometers into the city, and that's where I'm going to make my next drop. As we approach these guys, I thought we were going to do a long landing along the tree line, but it looks like they're actually on the other side of the tree line. And you know, so you get to see both types of landings, because this one is a more dynamic one where we have to fly past them and do a hard banking turn and decelerating turn down to them for pickup. As we come in for our city drop, we're kind of enjoying the fruits of our labor so far. We've destroyed a lot of the air defense that's at that airfield, so I feel safer flying higher, I feel safer flying slower. We still have to watch out for enemy aircraft, but at least we don't have to worry about the air defense. And generally I'm kind of flying a little bit slower than normal because we have to come down in the urban environment, and there's not a lot of long lanes. So I kind of fly slow so that if a lane did pop up, I don't have to bleed off a lot of speed so rapidly. I can gently kind of lower the aircraft into the smaller spot. And one works out really well. We find one as we get into range of the next camp that we're attacking. Once we touch down, I look on the F10 map to see what our next target's going to be, and it looks like most of the stuff that was reconned before us has been destroyed by us. And we're going to put down our own recon to go see if we can uncover anything else in the next hex below us. At this point, I figure, you know what, while I'm going to do my little minute and a half outbound, I'll just make sure I do that over the enemy airfield, because we cleared most of the air defense out as far as I know, and I would love to catch a plane on the ground and give them some payback for all those times that they've hit us on the FARPs. As we approached the airfield, it looked kind of clear, so that was a little bit disappointing. We took some fire, and there was a machine gun burst that happened, and I'm not sure what it was. I kept looking around to see if there were ground vehicles that I could spot, but I didn't notice any, so I didn't want to hang around too closely to the airfield because I couldn't determine where that gunfire was coming from. On the run back in to pick up our guys, we watch the camp that's been highlighted by that JTAC smoke and see it blow up on the way in, which is, like I said earlier, it's a great feeling when you see that and you're kind of timing it. But unfortunately, the standard guys have wandered off, and it's not ideal because they're around, from what I could see on the map, a bunch of high-rise buildings, so I'm not sure if they're clipped into one of the bigger buildings and I just can't see them that way. But initially there's some confusion as where the heck these guys went. After about a minute or almost 2 minutes of searching, I finally figure out where they're at, and they're on a road right on the edge of town. And I do a dumb thing here. There's just so much room, and it's easy for me to just fly past, circle in, and come and get the guys, but instead I try for a really steep approach. I want to say maybe I was trying to practice it, but I don't think I was. I think I was just being too lazy. With the steep approaches on the hip, you've got to be really careful about, obviously, your descent rate. And you can kind of get around it by making sure that your forward speed is at least 50 kilometers per hour or around there. If you continue to do that, you could dive down just like a plane would, and you'd be fine. The problem is I kind of pull that speed back too quickly, too soon, and I get really lucky that I catch it with the collective, and the ground effect kind of saves me, so we have like a bounce and everything else is fine. But then we're able to pick our troops up, but that was unnecessarily dangerous. Yeah, that was quite a way to finish. That will be our last pickup because the server is going to reset in a minute or two here, and we never make it back to base because of that. Hope you guys found that informative. I hope you guys thought it was kind of cool seeing how I do my landings and my pickups, what I'm looking for. I really wish the track worked just because I wanted to see all the cool external views of like coming in really hot and stuff for these pickups. But regardless, I hope that was still enjoyable for you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!